Prince Harry's ultimate shame as he puts the Kardashians before the veterans who he claims to care most about.
There are some nights in Hollywood where the glow of the cameras tells one story,
and you can see it in the paparazzi footage as Prince Harry leaves this event, is that he's not happy about it,
while the real story unfolds behind closed doors.
Unapologetically tacky.
This was one of those nights. When Meghan Markle arrived at Kris Jenner's 70th birthday celebration at Jeff Bezos' $165 million Beverly Hills mansion, her expression said everything she wanted the world to believe.
And I also have no sympathy, if we just come back to me here, for Ms. Markle refusing to wear one of these because she knows how to get them. This was purposeful.
She appeared triumphant, radiant, victorious. For Meghan, this wasn't just another social outing. It was proof. Proof that she had made it into the orbit of those who define cultural power in Los Angeles. The stakes were obvious. The symbolism was loud. This was Meghan walking into the castle she has been knocking at for years. Harry, however, told a completely different story just by standing there. He moved with a heaviness, his face drawn tight as he held Meghan's hand. He wore his Remembrance poppy pinned neatly to his tux, but it looked less like a tribute and more like an ornament placed awkwardly in a world far removed from the solemn service it represents. He didn't smile. He didn't pose. He looked like a man who understood exactly how the evening would be interpreted and how deeply it clashed with the identity he has spent the past decade trying to claim. Because inside that mansion, past the gates and the camera flashes, was a very specific crowd, one that didn't exactly greet the Duke and Duchess with warmth.
The royal family are meant to honor the fallen on a solemn remembrance weekend in the UK, but the dumb, traitorous Prince Harry and his grinning wannabe instead chose to honor a Kardashian 5,000 miles away. No interest in duty, just tacky fame.
This wasn't a room full of Hollywood cheerleaders applauding Meghan's ambition. This was a room of extremely experienced public figures who know how narratives shape careers, and who have already made their decisions about where they stand with the Sussexes. Mariah Carey was there, a woman who knows the power of silence and subtle distance better than almost anyone in the industry. Not long ago, when asked whether she'd met any royals, she bypassed Meghan entirely, referencing Sarah Ferguson instead. That wasn't an accident. Mariah doesn't misplace names. She chooses them, and the omission alone told the public where Meghan ranked in her world. Martha Stewart was also present, a woman who built her empire on skill, endurance, and reinvention, not on image or proximity to status. Just weeks prior, she made that pointed remark, hoping Meghan knows what she's doing, which in Martha speak means exactly the opposite. To stand in the same room, knowing that statement was still echoing across social media, must have been a moment Meghan felt more sharply than the photographs suggest. And then there was Adele.
Well, Meghan's upset plenty of people and possibly embarrassed Prince Harry by not wearing a poppy alongside her husband at Kris Jenner's 70th birthday party.
Rarely seen anywhere these days, unless the event holds personal meaning, the woman whose rumored rejection of Meghan's luxury gift basket became its own quiet headline. The singer wasn't unkind, she simply did not engage. That was the message. What looked to the cameras like a victory lap was, in reality, a room full of reminders. Reminders of hierarchy, reminders of reputation, reminders that not every table wants another seat added. And Harry knew it. Inside the mansion, the atmosphere was elegant, curated, and unmistakably strategic. Events like this aren't casual gatherings. They're ecosystems of influence. Every greeting, every glance, every conversation is a calculation. And Meghan, who has spent years studying rooms like this, walked in with the confidence of someone who believed she had finally crossed from outsider to insider. Cameras captured her glowing. She leaned into the imagery of belonging, but belonging isn't something you can force, and it isn't something you can photograph into existence. Witnesses say the energy shifted the moment the Sussexes stepped into the main hall. Conversations didn't stop, but they changed. Body language sharpened, expressions tightened. You could feel the temperature drop even through secondhand accounts. It wasn't open hostility. It was something much colder, social distance, the kind that doesn't need to be spoken aloud to be understood by everyone in the room. The people at this party weren't fringe celebrities. They weren't influencers chasing attention. These were industry titans, legacy figures, people whose careers and reputations have endured decades. They didn't need Meghan. They didn't need Harry. And importantly, they didn't need the chaos that follows them wherever they go. Adele remained in her own circle, surrounded by people she trusts, a subtle but unmistakable signal. Mariah floated through the crowd with effortless composure, acknowledging some, gliding past others. Martha conversed with guests who, like her, have nothing to prove. None of them needed to confront Meghan. Their silence was louder than any exchange would have been.
Extraordinary optics, given Harry claims, and remember he wrote that personal note last week saying he cares nothing more, Brittany, than the British veterans. And then on our most important day, Remembrance Sunday, he goes to a tacky party with the Kardashians. He can't even bother to procure his disrespectful wife a goddamn poppy. It's a stinky new look.
Harry, meanwhile, looked like he was shrinking into himself. His shoulders were tense, his jaw clenched, his expression somewhere between fatigue and resignation. For all the talk he has made in recent years about protecting his mental health, about escaping the performative world of the monarchy, here he was again, in a performance. Except this time, there was no institution to blame. No press office, no royal protocol, just the reality of his own choices. And hovering over everything was the timing. Because while Meghan was basking in the glow of being photographed in proximity to power, Harry's family was standing at the cenotaph in London, honoring lives lost in war. Remembrance Sunday wasn't just happening somewhere in the world, it was happening at that exact moment. William was present, Charles was present, Kate was present, despite her health struggles. Even young Prince George stood with quiet dignity, participating in a ritual older than any of them. Harry was once part of that, not as a prop, but as a soldier, a veteran, a man who served. But this time, while the UK bowed its heads in silence, Harry walked into a billionaire's birthday party under bright lights and loud laughter, wearing a poppy that suddenly felt performative rather than meaningful. The world noticed, and so did the people in that room. What made the timing even more striking was how directly it clashed with the image Harry has been trying to sustain. For years, he has spoken passionately about his identity as a veteran, about the emotional weight of military service, about the men he served beside and the lives lost in conflicts many will never fully understand. He has framed himself as someone deeply connected to remembrance, loyalty, and sacrifice, and yet, in a moment when his family and country were observing one of the most solemn events in the national calendar, he was photographed entering a party hosted by a billionaire known for luxury, spectacle, and excess.
She looked so respectful and pensive. And of course, we bring you these incredible visuals of Catherine honoring the patriotic and deceased in jarring comparison to Meghan Markle hitting up a Kardashian bash.
The contrast was impossible to ignore. It wasn't that Harry couldn't commemorate in California. He could have attended a veterans event. He could have held a private moment of reflection. He could have even chosen not to appear in public at all. But instead, he appeared at one of the most reported celebrity events of the season, surrounded by cameras he claims cause him emotional distress. It wasn't the poppy itself that caused outrage. It was what the poppy represents, and what the surroundings did to its meaning. And yet, while Harry looked burdened, Meghan seemed determined to control the narrative. Her smile never wavered, her posture was composed. She worked the angles, the lighting, the timing of interactions. She knew where the cameras were and where to place herself in relation to them. Her confidence wasn't accidental, it was strategic. She has been chasing a storyline for years, a return to Hollywood relevance, and this event was her stage. But the room didn't bend to her script, because at the same time, Meghan moved with theatrical poise. Another presence in the house highlighted just how complicated the night really was: Mark Zuckerberg, the man whose tech platforms Harry has repeatedly criticized. The figure Harry, once positioned as symbolic of the harms of modern media culture, was standing just feet away, chatting comfortably, visibly at ease in the environment the Sussexes were trying to claim. The irony was stark. Harry spent years condemning the influence of social media companies. He spoke about online harm, misinformation, and exploitation. He cast himself as someone fighting the system. Yet there he was, in the same room as the system's architects, not protesting, not challenging, but simply existing among them.
It's hard to comprehend where Meghan Markle's head is when we are seeing such grace and strength and selflessness from Catherine. How she could justify throwing on her Bond gear and showing up to the Kardashians' house.
Meanwhile, Meghan has continued to use the platforms Harry criticizes to maintain her public image. Instagram has been one of her defining tools. The disconnect between their stated values and their chosen actions was on full display, and everyone saw it. Industry insiders didn't need to whisper. The situation spoke for itself. In a space where image is everything, contradictions are currency. And this one was glaring. For many watching, it became the moment the Sussexes' narrative fractured. The moment where the story they tell about themselves collided with the story their behavior broadcasts louder than words. And the people in that room knew exactly what they were seeing. As the night continued, the contradictions only deepened. The more Meghan leaned into the glamour of the event, the more Harry seemed to retreat inward, as though he recognized what the evening symbolized in real time. He wasn't surrounded by friends. He wasn't among allies. He was surrounded by people who observe reputation the way jewelers examine diamonds, studying clarity, weight, and flaws with precision. In this room, image wasn't simply performance, it was currency. And the Sussexes' currency has been steadily declining. Take Justin Bieber, who was also present that night. Bieber, who has been open about his own struggles with fame, anxiety, and the emotional cost of being in the public eye, seemed to share none of the camaraderie or empathy Harry might have hoped for. Observers noted that Bieber kept his distance, offering neither acknowledgement nor engagement. Not hostility, just careful, purposeful avoidance. It was the quiet signal of someone who has spent years protecting what little privacy he has left and has no interest in absorbing anyone else's public chaos. Kim Kardashian was there too, wrapped in a dramatic purple ensemble that critics quickly dissected online. What was notable wasn't the dress itself, but the narrative surrounding it. Commentary suggested an almost theatrical contrast. Kim leaning fully into spectacle, while Meghan was trying to rise above it. Two women who became famous in entirely different ways, each representing a different evolution of modern celebrity. Yet, in that room, Kim appeared more rooted, more understood by her environment. Meghan, for all her confidence, still felt like she was asking for entry rather than owning it. And then there was Oprah, the woman who once provided the Sussexes with their most powerful platform. The interview that was supposed to reset their public image, reshape public perception, and define their life outside the monarchy. Instead, it became the beginning of their public unraveling. Oprah has since stepped back, not with statements, not with criticism, but with silence. And in Hollywood, silence is almost always intentional. She greeted people warmly that night. She laughed, she engaged, but she did not stand beside Meghan. She did not bring the Sussexes into her circle. She did not reinforce the alliance the public once believed existed. She was there as a guest, not as a supporter. That distinction was not lost on anyone, least of all Meghan. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, a different atmosphere entirely unfolded. Inside the Royal Albert Hall, Prince George stood among his family in quiet dignity. He didn't speak, he didn't perform. He simply understood the weight of the moment. It was a passing of the torch, subtle, deliberate, unspoken, a signal that the monarchy is already preparing for its future. While George stepped into tradition, Harry stepped into a party where tradition meant nothing. And that contrast, the future heir honoring the past, while the former spare grasped for Hollywood relevance, said more than any headline could write. As photographs from the party started circulating online, the narrative took shape almost instantly. It wasn't just about who was there or what they wore. It was about what the images revealed, without needing captions, commentary, or spin. Meghan smiling wide, soaking in the moment. Harry, tense and distant, hands clasped, shoulders tight, eyes cast downward. They weren't a unified front. They weren't aligned. They were, unmistakably, two people standing side by side while living in entirely separate emotional worlds. Industry analysts, PR strategists, and royal commentators all reached the same conclusion. The Sussexes are running out of narrative runway. Their original message, that they left the monarchy to live freely and authentically, no longer aligns with the lifestyle they are actively pursuing. You cannot renounce the institution of royalty while clinging to the status the title gives you. You cannot denounce media exploitation while walking straight into camera flash after camera flash. You cannot condemn the pressures of public life while fighting relentlessly to remain seen. Hollywood is not sentimental. It rewards relevance and punishes inconsistency. And in that world, perception is reality. Some have begun to quietly question what Harry truly wants, because in nearly every public appearance, his body language reveals far more than any statement or interview. He looks torn, uncomfortable, like someone who recognizes he is living a life he did not choose, but cannot step away from without losing everything tied to it. Meghan, on the other hand, seems to know exactly what she wants: visibility, status, proximity to power, and a seat at the cultural table. But visibility without foundation is fragile, and acceptance cannot be willed into existence. It is either granted or withheld by the room. And on this night, the room withheld. Meanwhile, the royal family continued forward with quiet momentum. There were no dramatic speeches, no interviews, no emotional appeals to the public, just presence, George standing beside his grandfather, William stepping into leadership without theatrics, Kate dignified, steady, unwavering. The signal was subtle but unmistakable. The monarchy does not need Harry to endure. Its future is already secured, and the next generation is being prepared without him. That is the real story, not the party, not the poppy, not the celebrities, or the photo ops. The story is the diverging paths. Harry, once positioned as the heartbeat of the modern monarchy, is now a spectator watching his former life continue without him. Meghan, who once stood at the center of global fascination, is now working relentlessly to remain central in a world that has moved on to its next headline. The palace did not exile them. Hollywood did not embrace them. They are suspended between two identities, belonging fully to neither. Whether they can course correct is still unknown. But nights like this make one thing clear. The higher the climb built on image alone, the steeper the fall when the room stops watching.